Hi and welcome to The Nation. My name is Gerard Ratnam. Now, diversity is critical in tech and enables companies to create better and safer products that take everyone into consideration, not just one section of society. Now, a 2020 report from McKinsey found that diverse companies perform better, they hire better talent, have more engaged employees, and retain workers better than companies that do not focus on diversity and inclusion. Despite this, women remain widely underrepresented in IT roles. A theme for International Women's Day this year is gender equality and for a sustainable tomorrow. Joining me on set is RITA IRINA Abdul Wahab, Vice President, Public Affairs and Communications from Huawei. RITA, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. It's good to have you here on this amazing celebration on the world stage. Everyone talks about International Women's Day. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the tech industry, okay, and the masculinity within tech industry. Why aren't there more women in tech, or how would you approximate this as to why there aren't many women in tech?
Thanks Gerard, for having me here today, and it's just a pleasure to speaking about this topic. So tech industry, as I see with a lot of other industries in Malaysia, like the manufacturing, automotive, definitely seen masculine by many, right? And of course, one of the things that I think would be one of the discriminatory facts is the work culture, and also the requirements that comes with the tech industry. But also with women coming on board, there is always this motherhood penalty that comes with it. I mean, you like it or not, whether you're married or we have children, it comes with it. And it ties as well to the job requirements and the salaries that you take in. There are studies that's been done where the male counterparts are actually earning more. And also the policies that surrounds the industry. I think I was speaking really before we started, and I said that I also wish that the policies that surrounds the industry, the ecosystem, is more supportive towards the women folk. Right. Support that comes in the form of childcare services, it needs to come in more strongly. Support as well in terms of understanding the women in the industry, because we do feel quite a lot of pressure. I think a lot of women take on the role of childcare more than men. Right. And the pressures in and out of organizations.
But this is something that we already see happening in the world. You know, if you look at Scandinavia and how they're moving forward with, you know, what you mentioned or what you say is a penalty to women, these roles are changing within, you know, countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden. You know, men are taking on stronger roles with looking after kids. Should we be looking at these countries, looking at their models and saying, hey, you know, we want to bring it back, but bespoke it for ourselves or customize it for Malaysia?
Definitely. I think the modern society has started to do that, taking more roles, more responsibilities in upbringing of the family. I think when the government started to push more women to come on board and get more responsibilities, especially senior management and participation, those need to also come with the different layers of the pipeline, right? So in preparing for the next generation, I think those policies need also to come into play. And studying, of course, the good examples from the Scandinavian would definitely do as good. Yeah.
Now, if you look at the ecosystem, okay, we're saying, it's fair, we're saying that there are more men than women in IT roles. But then, if you dial back a little bit, the bigger question is, okay, so there's more men in IT roles. So the next excuse is, what's the problem? You know, like men learn coding, women aren't going out and learning coding, and that's like the cornerstone of getting into IT roles. Or is there a different way of approaching this?
Okay, so in the IT world, it's not just necessarily about telecommunications or information systems, science, maths, computer science, and I think in the near future, everything is going to be about digital. Right? So if you look at the studies definitely done by Coursera, even by the graduates, for
Because
example.
they're an amazing platform, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
And even from Mohi itself, you can see that the interest in all the STEM subjects and the courses are increasing, both for the male and the female. But as you go along the way, right, when they graduate, but in the workforce, their numbers dwindle down, the girls especially. And why is that so? So total workforce in Malaysia, I think, is about 11 odd million, but more than half are women. But surprisingly, the makeup for a digital economy is only 35% are women. So there is that gap that you need to address. So for the men, are you saying, oh, they take up this coding and stuff, women don't? I think that's not entirely accurate. Yep. I think, to me, it's about when you start, everybody start at the same level playing field, same platform. But as you go along the way in the career, some do drop out, and there has been studies and why they drop out. Like I mentioned just now, there's more requirements for the women to stay home and look after children, look after the elderly. But as we go along, the society has become more modern, take on more responsibilities. But it's just that I think we need to do a little bit more in providing more sustainable and supportive ecosystem to make sure that we get to that 30% participations of women. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that women at a very, very young age, you see young girls getting out of college, or when they get into college, they want to get into social sciences, they want to get into journalism. I guess the thing that doesn't stand out at that point, maybe later in life it does, but at that point, what doesn't stand out now is making the subject or IT a little bit more sexy. So when women look at it, they'll say, hey, this is something I want to take. You say journalism and they think about, wow, me ending up on TV, me going to a war-torn zone, speaking to people there. That sounds sexy to a young girl. But as she furthers herself in life, she knows, there's just so much here in the IT world and I need to jump on board. So it's time for me to try to make that leap. What about women who've already come out into the working world and wanting to get on board into the world of IT?
Interestingly, for example, if I would take myself in the tech world, I didn't start in the IT specifically. So from engineering background, and then I moved to that because I see there's a lot of contribution that the company can do for Malaysians and also ASEAN as a whole. So I come to contribute, and this is, like I mentioned, to become the change agent and help bring more technology contribution to the country. So if we take more of these examples, there are, I believe, women who are doing this, who join the workforce and then later move to IT. There needs to be the agility in you to be able to do that. That's, I think, the first. And to know exactly where does the digital element come in different verticals. Example, in healthcare. You do have the digital aspect in healthcare. Agriculture, retail. I know a few friends who are now in retail, in Aeon specifically, and trying to make it more digital, providing more customized service to the customers. And Huawei, for example, we are a strong supporter for women in tech.
Yeah, that's something I want to talk about, but we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about what Huawei is doing, what's Huawei's take on this whole situation, and how Huawei is addressing it. Yeah, we'll take a short break, and we'll come back and discuss more about that. I'm joined by RITA IRINA Abdul Wahab, the Vice President, Public Affairs and Communications from Huawei. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us right here on The Nation. We're currently talking about women in the tech world in conjunction with International Women's Day celebration. I'm joined in the studio by RITA IRINA Abdul Wahab, Vice President, Public Affairs and Communications at Huawei. Now, you were talking about Huawei before we went off to a break. Does Huawei encourage women to be a part of the tech industry? Okay, and I'm sure you have initiatives and programs, but what are these initiatives and programs, and how successful have they been? And for those programs that are still running, how are they moving forward into 2022?
Sure, thanks.
That was too much of a question, isn't it? Too loaded there.
No worries. I'll do my best. So, in Huawei, we do have several programs that actually supports women in technology. One of which is called the Huawei Women Developers Week, where we bring together women in tech developers. We also have a Women in Tech program, and I think the team in Europe organized the Women Leadership Bootcamp, also called Women in Tech. We also have some CSR programs, which is called Seeds for the Future. Now that one is very interesting. We started that in 2008 globally, and in Malaysia it was 2014. And it's a global CSR where we bring excellent students to have more exposure in terms of the ICT skills and knowledge, have them to have some exposures for culture, and also to give them some of the experiences in terms of how you can apply this knowledge. I mean, when you finish studying, in Malaysia itself, about 100 plus students have benefited from this, and the latest one just completed, I think in November in 2021. So in 2022, we are seeing for this program to continue, and we have signed an MOU with Women Leadership Foundation, hopefully to be running a bootcamp soon for women leaders in Malaysia.
Right, so when you talk about a Women Leaders Bootcamp, what would it entail? What kind of programs that you have in there which would be indigenous to our friends at Huawei, and how they want to provide onto the, or rather provide into the world of women getting into these roles?
Definitely providing them with the right knowledge and skill sets. I think that's the first one. To share with them what's the future trends, what are the tried and tested solutions that other countries have done. As you know, Huawei, we provide solutions either to enterprise or to the carrier networks, and we would like to have this knowledge to be shared with the women leaders. And from there, we can also share some of the insights in terms of all the ICT technologies, and also providing them with as much knowledge on the strategic managements from Huawei and also from our partners. So for this, it's Women Leadership Foundation, and we are working very closely with the government as well, because they will be contributing to the bootcamp. So that's interesting actually. So we're targeting about 2,500 women leaders in the next few years.
So I think with the opening of the digital space and us becoming a bit more tech savvy in doing broadcasts online from our phones, you know, I can do a broadcast, just a full-on broadcast for 10-15 minutes from my phone now. So if you look at that and what that entails, there's just so many things that can be done. You know, you can get more women on board to participate in programs. And how, in your opinion, with using this technology, and now we know how to use it, how do we get more women to get onto programs like this? You know, some of them be like, I don't think this is for me, I don't think this is going to work, you know. Some of them are reticent, or they're hesitant about it. How do we get them to buy into this?
Perhaps you can look at it in two different ways. One is either are they provided with the right access to this knowledge, right? And for them to be able to use it, and to even to be producing and to be leveraging on this technology to improve themselves. And second is whether are we doing enough marketing on this tech knowledge. Like I said, some of them are already in the workforce, but to get them on board to the digital economy, I think they have got to see how they contribute in the whole supply chain, whereabouts in the different verticals that we're focusing on, and in terms of what would that be for them. The what's in it for me perhaps needs to be addressed, and what kind of support.
So stats, I don't know how many stats or how much stats you have with you, but can you tell us a little bit about women coming into tech and those who are moving out from tech into other jobs, or moving into tech from other jobs? Do you have any numbers with that?
Offhand, a little bit, but just to share with you in terms of how urgent the focus on women should be. So we talk about Fortune 500, right? So out of this 500 companies, less than 10% are being led by women. So it's not to say that we're not able to lead companies, but whether do we have the opportunities to? Are we provided with the right platform to? I mean, the future needs to also be focusing on women, but we need to be the topic as well. We shouldn't be seen as just the token directors or participants in the senior management, but we need to be those who are seen with capabilities. If you look at numbers, like I mentioned just now, so those that are in the technology industry, like I said, in the universities, there have been increased in numbers in the universities, those in the workforce, and even those who are interested to take those courses. You can see increasing numbers. But when they are in the workforce, right, for us women, we make up more than half of the current workforce. But only a third of us are in the digital economy. So that gap, I think, needs to be addressed. Where is the fallout? Yeah, and if that, I think, is not being addressed, I think the numbers will start to either plateau or it will start to shrink.
So our conversations tell us that we see this gap, we hear you, we know you're there, and we're getting to you. Pandemic has sort of slowed that down a little bit. I think so. I might be wrong here, but you think we should be working faster in 2022? We're already at the end of Q1.
Yeah, I think so, because when COVID came, right, and you see a lot of people start resigning jobs, so they start shifting, or they move to the gig economy. So where is the opportunity? And I think there's a lot of opportunity for women there, in the IT sector, in any of the vertical sectors. And there's a lot of courses that's being offered to actually reskill and upskill themselves. So like I mentioned just now, getting them the access and the opportunities to take these courses and to improve themselves, I think it has to be there. So the opportunities, the policies, the ecosystem, and the marketing that you mentioned to make it more sexier, I think if you put all of this in a nice package, that would be something that would be very, very attractive.
Speaking of package, we need to roll another package. We'll take another quick break and we'll come back and find out a little bit more about women in the tech world. Stay with us. This is The Nation on Bernama TV. Hello and welcome back. Our topic, women in the tech world. RITA, before I get to talking about you very briefly and your ethos and philosophy, we know, and I heard this through speaking to people in your team, that I guess legislation compels people to want to hire women. But what about this process happening on its own through empathy, through thinking, through like equality, just having those the moral compass within yourself kick in? What can people in big positions do at this point to ensure that's happening? And not, while we have a legislation that's great, there needs to be some thought process going through it, not driven by legislation, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it can't just be something like a boilerplate. You just put down there and say that we
said it better than I could ever do.
It's like, we do promote gender equality, provide equal opportunity employer, but this want to employ women, putting us in the senior management, right? There needs to be that want, and in terms of the opportunities and positioning, job description cannot be gender biased, put it that way. Like, for example, those who drive the forklifts, an example. You put men there. Can't women drive forklifts as well? So I think it's more of a skill set, the capabilities. It's not just based on paper, what you can and you can't do. It has to be very clear in terms of what you can contribute. So those things, you have to be totally gender blind. It's like, previously it was about color blind, doesn't matter which race, but now we're talking about gender blindness. So I would urge companies to really give us the opportunities, give us women the opportunities to climb up and then build the names for ourselves and allow us to actually grow in our career.
Right. But here's the more important question for me. I've been talking to you for a good 20 minutes now. And I guess the more important person in this conversation is you, and how you made it to where you are. So I guess it comes from a sort of an ethos and philosophy that you have, to get to the to a very high level at C-suite, and be heard there. Now, what should women know about getting to these levels? What should they do? What should they have as a mindset when they walk into a meeting? How should they talk? I don't know how this works. Just tell us your story, and let's try to fit that into a template for all our friends watching it.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I did ask my colleagues for some feedback in terms of how they view me as a leader, and a colleague of mine said it's because I bring everybody into a team. You need to have a good team, and this team is not just about in the organization and also outside of the organization. And who's your team outside of the organization? It's your family, your mom, your dad, your husband, your kids. It's a good support system. With a good support system, the foundation, because everything begins at home, right? And that particular amanah that you have, responsibility you have, and you bring it with you at work, and understanding that you want to do things right and do the right things, you have to know the difference. You have to have the right conscience, and of course you've got to work very hard to know what's the issue to deal with, what are the facts of the matter, and what are the things that surrounding the current government of the day. So you got to do a lot of reading, you got to listen to people, know your team, and whether some of these principles rub off to the people around you as well. Yep. So another colleague of mine used to say, now I understand, Rita, why you are as you are, and it's rubbing off on the team. It's making sure that you're doing things right, regardless whether it's popular or not.
I guess, when you work within the team and when you want to create an ecosystem or a better habitat, what you do is you let people see the way you do it. So would you go down to the ground and work like the team, like be one of the boys and girls and hang out with them, or do you have guarded borders as a VP?
Well, I do, but I also try to keep it balanced, and I try to push as much as possible opportunities for the team, empowering them as much to lead projects, to lead things that they're doing, and giving them the opportunity to shine in front of the management team as well, in front of the CEOs, in front of the board members, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about the people that I'm with, whether it's a receptionist, the cleaners, the tea ladies.
So I think that our language needs to change, and correct me here, I see a lot of people from C-suites, I interview a lot of them, and just a little thing like how you introduced your team to me. I've heard people say, if you have anything, my boy or my girl will get it done for you. I think that kind of language should change. Do you see that kind of language is dangerous in moving forward? Like treating people like people?
It is. In fact, we always have these meetings, and I always tell them, when we have discussions, it's not about me pushing certain agendas and stuff. It's everybody discusses. And what is the topic of the day? We do this daily discussion. I said, anybody has any issues, come, let's discuss this. It's not about, what do you want from me? It's a different thing. Right? And this boy-girl thing, I think it just creates that difference. You can't actually spar your ideas if you really create that difference, and I think that's not right.
Right. So we're going to close the show, and ideally the anchor would close the show, but we want to make it a little different this time around because it's International Women's Day. I want you to look straight into that cam and give us your message to all Malaysian women who've worked fantastically in these 2 years to help us get out of that pandemic. Even during the floods, I saw huge numbers of women working. So the camera is yours. You've got 40 seconds. Your message to Malaysia.
Okay, so to all the women out there in Malaysia, my love to you. We do value all the contributions that you've done, and there's a lot of us out there who's fighting for the positions that we do deserve, and we hope for all the best in the future.
Right. There was Rita IRINA Abdul Wahab. You can help me look into this camera. Vice President for Public Affairs and Communications, Huawei. Thank you very much, and happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.